A single weapon, 20 million deaths. An empire so massive it would never be matched. But this wasn't a sword or a cannon or even a catapult. It was a curved piece of wood, horn, and sinew that conquered more land than Rome, more people than Alexander, and changed warfare forever. This is the story of the deadliest bow in human history. The year is 1100 AD. The Mongolian steppes stretch endlessly, brutal and unforgiving. Nomadic tribes survive by hunting and raiding, but they have a massive problem. Traditional wooden bows, they crack in the freezing winters. They warp in the scorching summers. And worst of all, they're weak. You need to be 20 feet from a target to guarantee a kill. In the world of mounted warfare, that's a death sentence. Enter the composite bow. This wasn't just one material, it was three working together like a perfect machine. The belly, made from water buffalo horn, resisted compression. The core, lightweight wood or bamboo, provided structure. And the back, made from sinew tendons, stretched like elastic. When you pulled this bow, you weren't just bending wood. You were storing energy like a medieval spring-loaded weapon. But here's the catch, these bows took between 1 to 3 years to make. Master bowyers would steam the materials, carefully layer them, then let them cure in controlled temperatures. Rush the process. The bow would explode in your hands. The glue holding the layers came from fish bladders, the string from horse or camel hair. Every single component required expertise that took decades to master. Why was it so powerful? The secret was in the curve. European longbows were simple arcs, pull and release. But the Mongol bow had a dramatic recurve, bending away from the archer at the tips. This stored exponentially more energy in a smaller frame. A longbow needed to be 6 feet tall to match the power. The Mongol bow, just 4 feet, perfect for horseback. The numbers were terrifying. Effective range, over 300 yards, rate of fire, 6 arrows per minute while galloping on horseback, penetration power. These arrows could punch through chainmail at 100 yards, and the draw weight was between 100 to 160 pounds. That's twice what most modern compound bows can achieve. This wasn't a weapon. It was a long-range death machine. In 1206, a warrior named Temujin united the Mongol tribes and took the name Genghis Khan, universal ruler. He looked at this bow and saw something nobody else did. Not just a hunting tool, not just a weapon, but the key to conquering the world. His strategy was simple but brutal: turn every warrior into a mobile artillery platform. Mongol children started archery training at age 5. By age 15, they could hit a moving target while riding at full gallop. They mastered the legendary Parthian shot, firing backwards while retreating, making even a retreat deadly. Every Mongol warrior carried 2 composite bows, one for long range, one for close combat. They weren't just soldiers, they were born weapons systems. Their tactics revolutionized warfare. First, they'd unleash arrow storms from 200 yards out, staying beyond the enemy's range. Thousands of arrows would blot out the sun. Then came the psychological warfare. They'd fake a retreat, luring enemies into chasing them. The moment the enemy broke formation, the Mongols would wheel around and fire the Parthian shot, turning hunters into prey in seconds. 1258, Baghdad, jewel of the Islamic world, home to 500,000 people. The Abbasid Caliphate thought their walls would protect them. They were wrong. Mongol archers didn't need to breach the walls, they just fired over them. For days, arrows rained down like deadly hail. Defenders couldn't show themselves without being struck. The city fell in 2 weeks. The library's books filled the Tigris River. But the composite bow's greatest weapon wasn't physical, it was terror. Rumors spread across continents. Invisible warriors who could kill you from distances you couldn't even see. Armies that never ran out of arrows. Enemies called them devils on horses, and the scourge of God. Cities would surrender the moment they heard the Mongols were approaching. The bow didn't just kill bodies, it killed hope. Even mighty China couldn't stop them. The Jin dynasty had walls, fortresses, and millions of soldiers. Didn't matter. Mongol mobility was unstoppable. They'd strike, retreat, and strike again before defenders could even mount a counterattack. By 1234, northern China had fallen. The composite bow had defeated the most advanced civilization on Earth. The Song dynasty would fall next, completing the conquest by 1279. The Mongols carried specialized arrows for every situation, armor-piercing bodkin points for knights, broadheads for horses and unarmored targets, whistling arrows with hollow bulbs that screamed through the air, used for signaling and psychological warfare, even incendiary arrows to set cities ablaze. A single Mongol warrior carried 60 arrows in 2 quivers. That's 60 chances to end your life from 3 football fields away. By 1241, the Mongols reached Europe, crushing Polish and Hungarian armies at Mohi and Legnica. Europe's heavy cavalry was obsolete against mounted archers. Vienna was next, then Paris, then London. But fate intervened. Genghis Khan died in Mongolia, and the generals returned home to elect a successor. Europe was saved by pure luck. The composite bow had come within weeks of conquering the entire known world. At its peak in 1279, the Mongol Empire covered 9.3 million square miles. That's 16% of Earth's entire land surface. It was larger than the Roman Empire at its greatest, larger than Alexander's conquests, larger than the British Empire at its colonial height. And it was all built on horseback with a bow that weighed less than 5 pounds. 1 weapon, 4 continents, unstoppable. Let's break down what made this bow unbeatable. The sinew came from leg tendons of deer, elk, or cattle, providing incredible tensile strength. The horn, preferably from water buffalo or ibex, handled compression forces. The glue from fish swim bladders created bonds stronger than modern adhesives when properly cured. The wood core was often bamboo from China or birch from Siberia, nature's engineering at its finest. Modern recreational bows average 40 to 70 pounds of draw weight. Mongol composite bows, 100 to 166 pounds. That's not just strength, that's years of conditioning from childhood. Their shoulder and back muscles developed specifically for this weapon. Modern Olympic archers couldn't even draw a Mongol bow fully. These warriors were bred and trained for one purpose: to turn human bodies into ballistic launch systems. Rate of fire was the true killer advantage. A Mongol archer could loose 6 aimed shots per minute while galloping. European crossbowmen, 2 shots per minute while standing still. In the time it took a crossbowman to reload, a Mongol warrior had turned him into a pincushion. And longbowmen needed to stand stationary. Mongols could fire while retreating, advancing, or circling. They weren't just faster, they were untouchable. The bow enabled more than conquest, it enabled control. The Mongols created the Yam system, messenger stations every 25 miles across the entire empire. Mounted archers carried messages at breakneck speed, changing horses at each station. Intelligence from China could reach Hungary in weeks. This communication network wouldn't be matched until the telegraph in the 1800s. The bow didn't just build an empire, it governed one. Remember the original problem: whether destroying bows. The composite design solved it brilliantly. The laminated structure handled temperature swings from -40 to +110 degrees Fahrenheit. These bows functioned in Siberian winters and Arabian deserts equally well. While European forces were dealing with equipment failures, Mongol warriors could fight anywhere, anytime. Reliability was as deadly as power. Behind every weapon are masters who perfected it. Subutai, greatest general in history with 65 successful campaigns. Jib, whose name literally meant arrow, killed enemies from impossible distances. Mukhali, who conquered northern China almost single-handedly. These weren't just commanders, they were master archers who led from the front, bow in hand. Their legacy: victory after victory after victory. But we need to be real about the cost. Historians estimate the Mongol conquests killed between 20 to 40 million people, roughly 10% of the world's population at the time. Entire cities were erased. Civilizations collapsed. The composite bow was an engineering marvel, but it was also the most efficient killing tool the medieval world had ever seen. Progress often comes soaked in blood. So what stopped the unstoppable? Gunpowder. As firearms improved in the 14th and 15th centuries, the bow's advantages evaporated. Early guns were slow and inaccurate, but they required minimal training and could punch through any armor. The Mongol way of warfare, decades of training, mobile horse archery, became obsolete almost overnight. The weapon that conquered the world couldn't compete with chemistry and metallurgy. The empire fragmented after Kublai Khan's death in 1294. Without unifying leadership, the Khanate split apart. The Golden Horde fell to internal strife. The Ilkhanate collapsed. The Yuan dynasty was driven from China by 1368. The composite bow still worked perfectly, but it couldn't hold together an empire spanning continents. The weapon that built the empire couldn't sustain it. But the Mongol legacy lived on. Ottoman Turks adopted composite bow tactics. Russian Cossacks learned from Mongol warfare. Even modern military doctrine around mobile warfare, rapid strikes, and psychological operations can trace roots back to Mongol strategies. The German Blitzkrieg. Same principle: speed, mobility, overwhelming force. The composite bow taught the world how to wage war efficiently. Today, master bowyers worldwide attempt to recreate authentic Mongol composite bows using traditional methods. What they've learned: we barely scratched the surface of understanding them. The exact glue recipes, curing times, and material preparation remain partially mysterious. Modern replicas can approach but rarely match the performance of original Mongol bows. Some secrets died with the empire. Original Mongol bows survive in museums from Beijing to Istanbul. The Topkapi Palace Museum in Turkey houses exceptional examples. The National Museum of Mongolia displays bows from the empire's height. Each one is a masterpiece of engineering preserved across 700 years. They don't just represent weapons, they represent the pinnacle of pre-industrial military technology. These bows literally changed the world. In modern Mongolia, archery remains central to national identity. The Naadam Festival, one of Mongolia's biggest celebrations, features archery as one of the three manly skills alongside wrestling and horse racing. Thousands compete using traditional techniques passed down through generations. The composite bow isn't just history, it's a living connection to the greatest empire their ancestors built. Let's compare it to history's other great weapons. The Roman gladius conquered the Mediterranean. The Greek phalanx spear dominated for centuries. The English longbow won Agincourt. The Japanese katana became legend. But none conquered as much territory, defeated as many armies, or changed history as dramatically as the Mongol composite bow. The numbers simply don't compare. Historians love the what-if game. What if Genghis Khan hadn't died in 1241? What if the Mongols had conquered all of Europe? Would the Renaissance have happened? Would modern democracy have emerged? The composite bow came within weeks of redrawing world history completely. One weapon, one death, and the entire future of Western civilization hung in the balance. From an engineering standpoint, the composite bow was centuries ahead of its time. It used laminated composite materials, the same principle used in modern carbon fiber. It maximized energy storage through geometric design. It balanced power with portability. Medieval engineers achieved performance that modern materials science can barely improve on. This wasn't just craftsmanship. It was applied physics at the highest level. The shooting technique was equally sophisticated. Mongols used the thumb draw with a specialized ring, allowing faster releases than the Mediterranean finger draw. They anchored at the ear for maximum draw length. Full body rotation generated extra power, and they practiced until it became muscle memory, no conscious thought required. The weapon and warrior became one inseparable system. Building an empire on bows required unprecedented logistics. The Mongols established supply chains stretching thousands of miles to source materials. Sinew came from the steppes, horn from the south, bamboo from China. Skilled bowyers worked in every major garrison. They created the world's first truly global manufacturing network, military-industrial complex. The Mongols invented it 700 years early. The arrows themselves were engineering marvels. The optimal length was 24 to 32 inches for the composite bow. 3-feather fletching provided gyroscopic stability. The weight balance between point, shaft, and fletching determined trajectory. Get it wrong, and your arrow tumbled uselessly. Get it right, and you had a laser-guided missile by medieval standards. Mongol fletchers understood ballistics before the word existed. Against fortifications, the Mongols developed specialized tactics. They'd position archers at multiple elevations to create plunging fire over walls. This gave them angles defenders couldn't return effectively. They'd rotate archer positions to maintain continuous fire while others reloaded, and they calculated arrow trajectories for maximum coverage. Medieval walls were designed for sword and spear combat, not for aerial bombardment from 200 yards. The bow excelled in night raids. Mongols would use whistling arrows to create chaos in the darkness. The screaming sounds terrified enemies who couldn't see their attackers. Fire arrows illuminated targets while blinding defenders. Silent, regular arrows picked off anyone visible. The psychological impact of being shot at by invisible warriors in the dark broke armies before the main assault even began. Mongol warriors never stopped training. Daily archery practice was mandatory regardless of rank or age. They held competitions with valuable prizes to maintain motivation. Veterans trained recruits in proven techniques. Even generals practiced regularly, leading by example. This created a military culture where every single soldier was an elite marksman. When your entire army is special forces, you're unstoppable. Here's a stunning fact. One European knight with full armor, warhorse, and equipment cost as much as fielding 10 Mongol warriors. The composite bow's economics were revolutionary, cheap to produce, devastating in effect, and requiring only natural materials. While European kingdoms bankrupted themselves maintaining heavy cavalry, the Mongols scaled their armies effortlessly. They didn't just win battles, they won the economic war.